Daniel Mercer had never believed in fate. To him, life was simply a series of choices that could be calculated, plans that could be prepared, and mistakes that could be minimized if a person was careful enough. At 25, Daniel had a stable job at a large marketing company in Columbus, a small but clean apartment, an old car that was regularly serviced, and a schedule that almost never changed. He usually arrived at the office at 7:30 in the morning, nearly an hour before most people, checked his emails, organized his schedule, and only then began his day. His coworkers often joked that if the building ever caught fire, Daniel would probably be the first person outside with 3 printed copies of an evacuation plan. He always laughed when they said that, but deep down, he knew they were right. Daniel liked certainty. He liked knowing what would happen next. He liked things that were within his control. Perhaps that was why he had spent so much time rebuilding his life after a year he never wanted to remember. 10 months earlier, Daniel had believed he had found the woman who would be with him for the rest of his life. Caroline had been his girlfriend for nearly 4 years, and his fiancée for 8 months. They had planned their wedding, booked the venue, chosen a date, made a guest list, and even spent weeks arguing over what color the flowers should be on the reception tables. Daniel had bought another ring to give Caroline on their wedding day, a gift he never had the chance to give her. But only a few weeks before the wedding, Caroline told him she was no longer sure she loved him. She had not betrayed him. She had not done anything cruel, and there was no other man. That was what made it hurt even more. She had simply realized that she no longer wanted the life they had planned together. Caroline told Daniel that he was the best man she had ever known, but she no longer felt like she was living inside a love story. She felt like she was living inside a schedule. Daniel did not know how to respond to that. He had done everything right. He had been faithful. He had been responsible. He had tried to become the best partner he could possibly be. But apparently love was not an equation where following every step correctly guaranteed the desired result. After the breakup, Daniel did not blame Caroline. He did not try to win her back. He returned the ring, canceled the wedding, moved out of the apartment they had rented together, and told himself that he would never again allow another person to have the power to turn his life upside down. He began living simply: work, home, exercise, meeting Marcus, his best friend, on weekends. No dating, no complicated relationships, no promises about the future. Daniel believed he had finally found peace. He did not know that this peace was about to end because of a small rug rolled up at the end of a hallway. It was a Monday morning, and the Whitaker and Ross marketing office was busier than usual because of an important meeting with a new client. Daniel had just stepped out of a conference room carrying a stack of documents when he heard someone call his name from the other side of the hallway. "Daniel!" He turned and saw Hannah Brooks running toward him. Hannah worked at the same company, but in a different department. She handled communication strategy and was known for being intelligent, quick-thinking, and unwilling to back down when facing a difficult client. Daniel had known her for nearly 2 years. They had worked on several projects together, had drunk coffee in the same break room, and had talked about work hundreds of times, but they had never truly crossed the boundary between friendship and something more. Daniel had once found himself attracted to Hannah, but he had always considered it something not worth pursuing. After what happened with Caroline, he was even more certain. Hannah was running very fast, carrying a stack of documents so high that it almost blocked her view. She was talking while running. "I need your report before 10. Daniel was about to answer when Hannah stepped onto the small rug lying directly in front of the conference room door. The toe of her shoe caught the edge. She lost her balance. The documents flew from her hands. Daniel had less than a second to react. He reached out and caught her. Hannah crashed directly into his chest, one hand gripping his shoulder, the other instinctively grabbing the front of his shirt. The entire hallway went silent. Daniel looked down. Hannah looked up. They were so close that he could see tiny brown flecks in her eyes. Neither of them said anything. 1 second passed, then another. Finally, Hannah laughed. "Well, I just embarrassed myself in front of the entire company." Daniel looked at the papers scattered across the floor, then back at her. "At least you didn't fall." Hannah raised an eyebrow. "Thanks to you." "It was a reflex, so if I fall again, I'll try to catch you again." Hannah smiled. "Good. I'll remember that." She bent down to collect the documents. Daniel bent down too. They both reached for the same sheet, and their fingertips touched. Hannah looked at him and smiled. "Thank you, Daniel. You're welcome." She stood and walked away, but after taking a few steps, she turned around. "Oh, Daniel? Yeah? You can let go of my waist now." Daniel froze as he suddenly realized he was still holding her. He immediately released her. Several people nearby laughed. Hannah laughed too, then hurried toward the conference room. Daniel stood in the middle of the hallway, feeling his face grow warm. Marcus appeared from behind him at exactly that moment. He looked at Daniel, then at Hannah disappearing through the door. "Did you just catch her?" Daniel bent down and picked up the last sheet of paper. "She almost fell." Marcus smiled. "I saw." "Don't say anything. I haven't said anything. But you're thinking. I'm thinking that someone finally made you forget what you were doing." Daniel said nothing. He returned to his desk and tried to focus on work. But throughout the entire morning, he kept remembering Hannah's eyes when she looked at him. He told himself it was just an accident, just a reflex, just a brief moment. It meant nothing. He did not know that for Hannah, the moment had left a strange feeling too. She did not know why she was smiling so much. She did not know why, even at the end of the day, whenever she remembered Daniel's hand around her waist, her heart still beat a little faster than usual. Both of them tried to treat it as a small incident. But sometimes life begins to change because of the very things we believe mean nothing. The days after the hallway incident, Daniel and Hannah tried to behave as though nothing had happened, but it was harder than either of them expected. Hannah started appearing at Daniel's desk more often for reasons that were not particularly convincing. Sometimes she asked about a report that could easily have been sent by email. Sometimes she brought him a cup of coffee and said she had made too much. Some days she stood beside his desk for nearly 5 minutes just to tell him a story that had absolutely nothing to do with work. Daniel noticed all of it but pretended not to. He was afraid that if he responded, things would go too far. He had once thought he understood how to protect himself from being hurt. All he had to do was never let anyone get too close. But Hannah had a strange way of making people forget about the walls they had built. She did not try to seduce him. She did not say overly romantic things. She simply existed around him, laughed with him, argued with him, teased him, and somehow made ordinary, boring workdays feel easier. One afternoon, Hannah placed a cup of coffee on Daniel's desk. "No sugar." Daniel looked at the cup, then at her. "I don't remember ordering this." "You didn't? Then how did you know?" Hannah shrugged. "Observation." Daniel smiled. "You observe me? It seems you're nervous. I'm just surprised." Hannah leaned against his desk. "Don't worry. I don't know anything too frightening about you yet," Daniel asked. "Such as?" "You hate sweets. You always check an email 3 times before sending it. You drink coffee at 8:15 every morning. And whenever you're stressed, you tap your fingers on the desk." Daniel looked down at his hand. His fingers were tapping against the desk. Hannah laughed. "See?" She walked away. Daniel watched her and unconsciously smiled. Marcus witnessed the entire thing and immediately pulled up a chair. "You like her?" "No. You just smiled." "I smile. Not like that." Daniel sighed. "She's a coworker." Marcus looked at him. "Caroline was a coworker before she became your girlfriend." Daniel fell silent. Marcus knew he had touched the painful spot, so he did not say anything else. But that night, when Daniel returned home, he thought about what Marcus had said. He wondered whether he was using his past as an excuse to avoid something new. The answer made him uncomfortable because he knew he was attracted to Hannah. The problem was that it frightened him. 1 week later, Hannah approached Daniel after work. The office was almost empty. She stood outside the conference room and asked, "Do you have a few minutes?" Daniel nodded. "What's wrong?" Hannah walked inside but did not sit down. She looked different. She no longer had her usual confidence. "Tomorrow is my dad's birthday." Daniel smiled. "Happy birthday to him? My family is having dinner? That sounds nice." Hannah gave a dry laugh. "It isn't." Daniel immediately understood there was something behind it. "Your mother?" Hannah nodded. "My mother will be there." She took a deep breath. "She loves asking questions." "About work?" "About everything. Work, love, marriage, children, houses, the future. Why I'm not settled down. Why I'm always alone." Daniel sat down. "You don't have to answer." "I know." "Then why are you worried?" Hannah looked at him. "Because I'm tired." Daniel said nothing. Hannah lowered her voice. "I want to ask you for a favor." "What kind of favor?" "I'm said, come with me." Daniel was surprised. "To dinner?" "Yes." "As a coworker?" Hannah shook her head. "As my boyfriend." Daniel thought he had misheard her. "Excuse me?" "I want you to pretend to be my boyfriend for one evening." Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Hannah quickly added, "I know it sounds crazy. You can say no. I'll understand." It's just that my mother won't stop asking questions if I show up alone. And I don't want to hear those questions one more time. Daniel asked, "Why me?" Hannah looked down. "Because I trust you." The simple answer left Daniel speechless. "And," Hannah continued, "you're the only person I think could do this without making it weird." Daniel laughed. "I think we're already pretty weird." Hannah laughed too. "So will you?" Daniel knew it was a bad idea. They worked at the same company. Her family would ask endless questions. He had only recently begun realizing that he had feelings for her. Pretending to be a couple for one evening could make everything much more complicated. But when he looked into Hannah's eyes, he could not say no. "Okay." Hannah's eyes widened. "Really? One evening. One evening. And you have to tell me everything I need to know beforehand." "Of course. What does your father like?" "Baseball." "Your mother?" "That's a difficult question." "Your brother?" "Marathons." "Your aunt?" Hannah grimaced. "You don't need to know." Daniel laughed. On the way to Hannah's parents' house the next evening, she kept reminding him of everything he needed to remember. "My dad is easygoing. My mother isn't. My brother will ask about your work. Aunt Rita will ask about children." Daniel turned toward her. "On the first meeting?" Hannah laughed. "Aunt Rita doesn't care whether it's the first meeting or the 10th. Daniel shook his head. "I'm starting to think I need a contract." Hannah laughed loudly, but as they got closer to the house, she suddenly became quiet. Daniel noticed immediately. "Are you okay?" Hannah looked out the window. "Every time I come home, I feel like I become a different person." Daniel asked, "What kind of person?" She thought for a moment. "Someone who always has to prove she's good enough." Daniel did not know what to say. He simply said, "Tonight, you don't have to prove anything." Hannah turned toward him. "You make it sound easy." "Because I'm not you." "Exactly." She gave him a weak smile. "But thank you." When the car stopped in front of the house, Hannah reached across and took his hand. Daniel looked down. She said nothing. Neither did he. But both of them understood that from that moment, their performance had already begun to feel dangerously close to the truth. Hannah's parents lived in a large house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. When the door opened, the first person Daniel met was Russell, Hannah's father. He was a man in his 60s, with mostly gray hair but a youthful smile. He shook Daniel's hand firmly and said he was happy to meet him. "I've heard Hannah mention you." Daniel looked at Hannah. She immediately smiled. "I've only told him a little." Russell looked at his daughter, then at Daniel, his eyes full of amusement. "How much is a little?" Hannah pulled Daniel inside. "Dad, don't start." Dinner began comfortably enough. Russell told funny stories about the years when he was a principal. Simon, Hannah's brother, constantly teased his sister. Daniel quickly realized that this family had a lot of affection, but also a lot of things that remained unspoken. Denise, Hannah's mother, sat across from him and watched more than she spoke. She was polite, but her eyes made Daniel feel as though he were sitting through an interview. After the appetizer, she asked, "Daniel, how long have you worked with Hannah?" "Almost 2 years." "You've known each other that long and Hannah never brought you home?" Hannah immediately replied, "Because before we weren't." She stopped, searching for the right word. Daniel understood what she was trying to say. "Official," he said. Denise looked at him. Hannah lightly kicked his leg under the table. Daniel realized he had chosen the wrong word. He quickly added, we only recently started getting serious about each other." Denise nodded but said nothing more. Aunt Rita arrived about 20 minutes later. She sat beside Daniel, smiled, and immediately asked, "Do you want children?" Daniel nearly dropped his fork. Hannah closed her eyes. "Aunt Rita, I'm only asking." Daniel forced a smile. "Maybe someday." Aunt Rita nodded thoughtfully. "Good. I like you." Hannah looked at Daniel as if to say that he had just placed himself in danger. But the real difficulty began when Denise started talking about Hannah. "She's always working," she said. "I don't understand why she has to spend so much time at the company." Hannah replied, "I like my job. I know. But you need to think about the future." "I am thinking about it." "How?" Hannah fell silent. Denise turned toward Daniel. "What do you think?" Daniel knew he should not answer, but he saw the tension on Hannah's face. She was trying to stay calm. He placed his glass down. "I think Hannah is very good at what she does." Denise raised an eyebrow. "What does that have to do with anything?" "I work with her." I know how much effort she puts into her work. I don't think that means she doesn't care about her family." Denise looked at him. Daniel continued, "Maybe she just wants to make her own decisions about her life." The room went silent. Simon lowered his head to hide a smile. Russell looked at his wife. Hannah looked at Daniel, surprised and grateful at the same time. Denise did not argue. But after dinner, when Hannah went into the kitchen to clean up, Daniel followed. She was washing dishes when he stood beside her. "You didn't have to do that." "Do what?" "Speak for me." "I wasn't speaking for you. You were." Daniel shook his head. "I was just saying what I think." Hannah put the plate down. "Do you know how my mother makes me feel?" "No. Like no matter what I do, I'm never good enough." Daniel looked at her. "I think you're good enough." Hannah smiled, but her eyes were already red. "How long have you known me?" "Long enough. Not long enough to know everything." "Maybe." Daniel stepped closer. "But I know you work until you're exhausted because you care. I know you call your dad every week. I know you remember everyone's birthdays. I know you always help your coworkers even when nobody asks. I think someone like that doesn't need to prove she's a good person." Hannah looked at him. "You really think that?" "Yeah." A tear slipped down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away. "Sorry, don't apologize. I hate crying." "Then cry." Hannah laughed through her tears. "You're strange. I've heard that before." She looked at him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she stepped forward and kissed him. Daniel froze. For the first few seconds, he did not know how to react. When Hannah pulled away, she looked at him. "I'm sorry." Daniel shook his head. "Don't." "But we're pretending." "I know." And yet, Daniel did not let her finish. He leaned down and kissed her. That kiss was no longer part of a performance. It was something both of them had been trying to avoid for weeks. When they separated, Hannah whispered, "We just made everything complicated." Daniel smiled. "Maybe. Do you regret it?" "No, neither do I." When they returned to the living room, nobody asked anything. But Russell looked at the two of them and smiled. Perhaps he understood more than they thought. On the drive home, Hannah remained quiet for a long time. When Daniel stopped in front of her house, she still did not get out. "Do you think that kiss was a mistake?" she asked. Daniel looked at her. "No." Hannah nodded. "Me neither." She opened the door, but before stepping out, she turned back. "Thank you for tonight." "You're welcome." "No." She looked at him. "More than you think." Then she closed the door. Daniel watched her walk inside. He remained in the car for several minutes. He knew his life had just changed. What he did not know was that the change would force him to face the fear he had tried to bury for almost a year. The next day, both Daniel and Hannah tried to work as usual, but they could not. Every time they crossed paths, they remembered the kiss in the kitchen. Hannah was the one who avoided his eyes the most. Daniel did not want to pressure her. He understood that she might be confused. That afternoon, Hannah texted him a very short message. "Can you meet me after work?" Daniel agreed. They met at a small coffee shop a few blocks from the office. Hannah arrived first. When Daniel sat down, she looked at him for a moment before saying, "I don't know how to say this. It's okay. I don't want what happened between us to become weird. Neither do I. But I also don't want to pretend it never happened." Daniel remained silent. Hannah said, "I thought about it all night. About the kiss, about everything." She looked directly at him. "I like you." Daniel felt his heart beat harder. "I know." Hannah laughed. "You know? Maybe. What about you?" Daniel did not answer immediately. He remembered Caroline. He remembered what it felt like when all the plans he had once trusted collapsed. He remembered promising himself that he would never allow another person to enter his life deeply enough to hurt him again. But then, he looked at Hannah and realized he had broken that promise long ago. "I like you too." Hannah exhaled as though she had been holding her breath for a long time. "So what do we do?" Daniel smiled. "I don't know. That's the first time I've heard you say you don't know. I'm getting used to the feeling." Hannah laughed. They decided not to rush into defining the relationship. They would get to know each other, but they would be honest. No more pretending. No games. No using work as an excuse to avoid their feelings. But simple things often become complicated when real feelings appear. Daniel began realizing that he missed Hannah when she was not around. He wanted to tell her about little things. When he saw a good movie, he thought of her. When he drank coffee, he remembered what kind she liked. When something funny happened at work, she was the first person he wanted to find. Hannah felt the same way. She began leaving small things at his apartment: a book, a scarf, a hair clip. At first, Daniel thought they were accidental. Then he realized she was slowly becoming part of his life. One rainy evening, Hannah drove to Daniel's apartment after an exhausting day at work. The moment she walked through the door, she said, "I hate today." Daniel took her coat. "What happened?" "The client changed the entire plan." "Again?" "Again." Daniel laughed. "Do you want to eat?" "No." "Have you eaten?" "No." "Then you're eating. You're not my father." "Thank God." Hannah laughed. Daniel cooked a simple dinner. While they ate, Hannah talked about work, the pressure she was under, and her mother. "My mom texted me today." "What did she say?" "She asked if I was moving too fast with you." Daniel was silent. "What did you tell her?" "I don't know." Hannah put her fork down. "Are you afraid?" "Afraid of what?" "Of me." Daniel laughed. "Why would I be afraid of you?" "Because I'm not easy." "Neither am I." Hannah looked at him. "You have a past. So do you. You've been hurt. So have you. What if we hurt each other?" Daniel did not answer immediately. He looked at her and said, "Then we talk." "What if we can't fix it?" "Then we keep trying." "What if that still doesn't work?" Daniel took her hand. "I don't know, but I don't want to begin a relationship by assuming it will end." Hannah was silent. She squeezed his hand. "I like that." The following weeks passed gently. They began dating for real. There were evenings out for dinner, Sunday mornings, spent shopping together. Arguments over very small things. Daniel liked everything to happen on time. Hannah was often late. Hannah liked making decisions at the last minute. Daniel needed at least a week to plan. They were different in almost every way, but instead of pulling them apart, those differences helped them understand each other. Daniel learned that not everything needed a schedule. Hannah learned to keep promises and respect other people's time. One evening, Hannah asked, "Do you ever think about Caroline?" Daniel was silent. "Sometimes." "Do you still love her?" "No." "Are you sure?" Daniel looked at her. "I loved her once, but that love ended." Hannah nodded. "I don't want to be a replacement." "You're not." "Then, what am I?" Daniel took her hand. But, you're the person I'm choosing." Hannah looked at him for a long time. She smiled. I like that answer. But Daniel did not yet know that the past would not let go as easily as he thought. One afternoon, while Daniel was working, his phone vibrated. Caroline's name appeared on the screen. He stared at it for a long time. Just seeing that name was enough to bring old emotions rushing back. Not love, not the desire to return, just memories of what had been lost. Daniel did not answer. A message appeared. "We need to talk, just once." Daniel placed the phone face down. Hannah was sitting at the desk across from him, but she noticed the change in his expression. "Who called?" Daniel did not want to hide it from her. "Caroline." Hannah was silent for a few seconds. "What does she want?" "To talk." "Do you want to meet her?" "No." "Then you don't have to." Hannah asked nothing else. That calmness made Daniel grateful. She did not become jealous. She did not demand that he block Caroline's number immediately. She did not tell him that he had to prove his love. She simply trusted him. But that night, Caroline called again. This time, Daniel answered. "I just want to see you." "Caroline, I don't think we have anything left to talk about." "I know you think that." "Then why?" Caroline was silent. "Because I realized I was wrong." Daniel closed his eyes. "About what?" "About you. About us." Daniel said nothing. Caroline continued. "After we broke up, I thought I needed freedom. I thought life with you was too predictable. I thought I needed something different. But then I realized I didn't understand what I had." Daniel felt an old pain. "Caroline, I'm not calling to ask you to come back." "Good. I just want you to know that I regret it." Daniel was silent. "I used to want to hear that," he said. "But now it doesn't change anything," Caroline cried. "Are you with someone else?" Daniel looked out the window. "Yes. Is she good to you?" "Very. Are you happy?" Daniel smiled. "Yeah." Caroline remained silent for a long time. "Then I understand." The call ended. Daniel sat in the darkness. He felt relieved, but he also felt sad. Not because he wanted Caroline back, but because he realized that some people who were once incredibly important eventually become only a part of your past. Hannah found him on the balcony. "Are you okay?" "Yeah." "What did she say?" Daniel told her. Hannah did not react immediately. She simply stood beside him. After a while, she asked, "Do you want to talk more about her?" "No." "Are you sure?" "Sure." Hannah nodded. Daniel looked at her. "You're not angry?" "No." "Not jealous?" "A little." Daniel laughed. At least you're honest. Hannah rested her head on his shoulder. I just need to know where you are. Here. With me? With you. Hannah held his hand. Daniel realized that what made him love her was not that she made him forget his past. It was that she made him feel safe enough to face it. At the same time, the company's biggest project began experiencing serious problems. The Brighton Home Goods client suddenly changed its strategy only days before the presentation. Hannah was in charge. She worked constantly, skipped meals, slept very little, and became increasingly irritable. Daniel tried to help, but she refused. I can handle it. I know. Then, don't worry. I'm not worried. You are. Yes. Hannah looked at him. I hate feeling like I can't control everything. I understand. No, you understand too well. Daniel smiled. Maybe. She sat down. What if I fail? Then we fix it. What if it can't be fixed? Then we learn. What if everyone blames me? Then they blame you. Hannah looked at him. You always make everything sound simple. No, I just think failure isn't the end. Those words stayed with Hannah. She had lived too long with the fear of failure. Her mother had always made her feel that one mistake could define her entire identity. But Daniel was teaching her the opposite. One night, while Hannah was still working, Daniel placed a box of food on her desk. Eat. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten since noon. Are you controlling me? Daniel froze. No. Hannah immediately regretted it. I'm sorry. Daniel shook his head. It's okay. He turned to leave. Hannah grabbed his hand. Don't. Okay, stay. Daniel sat down. Hannah ate a few bites. Then she said, I'm afraid I'll become like my mother. Why? Because I always want everything to be perfect. Daniel looked at her. You're not like her. How do you know? Because you know you're trying to change. Hannah looked at him. You know, sometimes I think I love you because you don't try to fix me. Daniel smiled. I love you because you don't try to fix me either. They looked at each other. And for the first time, Daniel said the words he had been afraid to say. I love you. Hannah froze. She said nothing for several seconds. Daniel wondered if he had scared her, but then she stepped forward, wrapped her arms around him, and said, I love you too. From the day Daniel told Hannah he loved her, their relationship entered a different stage. There were no more questions about what they were. There was no more hesitation. They began appearing together in front of their coworkers. Marcus nearly celebrated when he found out. Finally! He shouted. Daniel frowned. You're acting like we just won an award. To me, you did. Hannah laughed. He's been waiting for this for a long time. Daniel looked at Marcus. Don't you have anything else to do? Nothing more important than this. But outside the laughter at the office, Hannah still had to deal with her mother. Denise did not openly oppose the relationship. She simply kept asking questions. Are you sure Daniel is right for you? I'm sure. How long have you been together? Long enough to know each other. Are you thinking about the future? Yes. Marriage? Hannah began to feel exhausted. Mom, I don't know yet. Denise looked at her. I just don't want you to make another mistake. Hannah fell silent. Where do you think I made a mistake before? Denise sighed. You've always been too emotional. I'm 30 years old. I know. I have a career. I have a life. I'm responsible for my choices. Denise looked at her daughter. I'm just worried. Hannah softened. I know. This was the first time Hannah did not become angry. She understood that behind her mother's need for control there might be fear. Denise was afraid her daughter would get hurt. But the way she expressed love made Hannah feel as though she were always falling short. One evening, Hannah told Daniel about it. Do you think I should try to make my mother understand? Daniel asked, Can you make her understand? Hannah shook her head. Then you don't have to, but I want her to accept you. Do you want her to? Hannah thought. Yes. I want your mother to like me too, but I don't need her to decide that I'm good before I know I am. Hannah smiled. You make it sound easy. I'm learning. Hannah rested her head on his shoulder. So am I. They began talking about living together. Not because they were being pressured. Not to prove anything, simply because they wanted to spend more time together. Daniel was nervous at first. He had once lived with Caroline and thought it was the first step toward a perfect future. But this time was different. He was not planning a perfect life. He simply wanted to share his present with someone. Hannah gradually moved her things into his apartment. At first, it was just a few clothes. Then books. Then makeup. A bedside lamp. A photograph of her family. Eventually, one morning, Daniel looked around and realized Half of the apartment carried Hannah's presence. He did not feel uncomfortable. He felt warm. One evening, while organizing books, Hannah asked, "Are you afraid?" "Of what?" "That one day we'll become two people who simply live in the same house." Daniel looked at her. "Do you think that will happen?" "I don't know." She placed the book down. "Then let's not let it happen." "How?" "Don't stop getting to know each other." Daniel smiled. "Sounds simple." Love can be simple if people are willing to take care of it. Those words stayed with Daniel for a long time. They created their own rules. At least one evening every week without phones. One outing together every month. Never going to sleep angry when the issue was genuinely serious. And most importantly, never using something the other person had shared in a moment of vulnerability as a weapon during an argument. Those rules did not prevent every conflict, but they taught them how to return to each other after disagreements. Daniel was still sometimes too controlling. Hannah still sometimes reacted too strongly, but they learned to apologize. Once, Hannah became angry because Daniel changed their weekend plans without asking her. She told him that he always thought he knew what was best. Daniel became angry and walked away, but several hours later, he came back. "I was wrong." Hannah said nothing. "I didn't ask you. I'm sorry," she asked. "Do you really understand why I'm angry?" "Because I made a decision for both of us." Hannah nodded. "Exactly." Daniel sat down. "I won't do it again." Hannah took his hand. "I'm sorry too for calling you selfish. I am a little selfish," she laughed. "Yes, you are," they hugged. Not every love story is proven by huge moments. Sometimes it is proven by a sincere apology at the right time. The real confrontation between Hannah and Denise happened several months later. The family was having dinner for Russell's birthday. Everyone was there. Daniel had been invited too. The evening was pleasant at first. Russell told old stories. Simon teased his sister. Aunt Rita still asked questions that made everyone laugh. But after dinner, Denise suddenly asked Hannah, "Have you two talked about marriage?" Hannah put her glass down. "No." "Why?" "Because we're not rushing." Denise looked at Daniel. "Do you want to marry her?" Daniel was slightly surprised. He looked at Hannah, then answered honestly, "Yes." Hannah looked at him. Denise continued, "Then why haven't you?" Daniel said, "Because when we get married, I want it to be because we're ready, not because everyone is waiting for us to do it." Russell smiled. Simon lowered his head. Denise remained silent. Later, she pulled Hannah outside. Daniel did not follow. The two women stood in the backyard. "I only want you to be happy," Denise said. Hannah replied, "I know. I'm not sure Daniel can give you that. You don't have to be sure." Denise looked at her daughter. "You've changed." Hannah smiled sadly. "I'm growing up. I don't think you need me anymore." That sentence stopped Hannah. For the first time, she realized that behind her mother's controlling behavior was not only fear that her daughter would get hurt, there was also fear of being left behind. "Mom," Hannah said gently, "I still need you, but I don't need you to make decisions for me." Denise lowered her head. "I don't know how to do that." Hannah took her hand. "Then we can learn together." Denise looked at her daughter. The two embraced. Not every wound was healed immediately, but for the first time, they began talking without needing to win. When Hannah returned, Daniel was standing by the door. He did not ask what had happened. She walked toward him and hugged him. "I'm okay. I know. My mom will be okay too. I know that too." She looked up at him. "Did you ever think we would get here?" Daniel smiled. "No. What did you think?" "I thought I would live alone for a very long time. And now? Now I don't want to." Hannah leaned against him. "Me neither." A year after the hallway incident, their lives were completely different. Daniel was promoted. Hannah became head of the strategy team. Their work became busier, but they no longer allowed work to consume their entire lives. They traveled for short trips. They saw friends. They spent time with family. Denise began contacting Daniel herself, not because her opinion had completely changed, but because she could see her daughter was happy. One evening, Russell called Daniel outside. He said, "Thank you." Daniel was surprised. "For what?" "For making her laugh more." Daniel shook his head. "I don't do that alone." Russell smiled. "I know." He patted Daniel on the shoulder. "She's strong, but she has always believed she had to be strong by herself. You helped her understand that leaning on someone doesn't mean she's weak." Daniel looked toward the window, where Hannah was talking with her mother. "She taught me the same thing." Russell nodded. Then you found the right person. Daniel did not answer, but deep inside, he knew Russell was right. One weekend morning, Hannah was moving more of her belongings into Daniel's apartment. She carried a large box through the living room. Where should I put this? Daniel was repairing a shelf. Bedroom. Can you help me? 1 minute. Hannah shook her head. You always say 1 minute. She carried the box herself. But as she crossed the living room, her foot caught the edge of a rug. She lost her balance. Daniel turned just in time and caught her. She fell into his arms. They both froze. Then Hannah laughed. Again. Daniel looked at her. I'm starting to think you're doing it on purpose. Maybe. You know, the first time you fell, I thought it was an accident. And now? Now I think it's how you found me. Hannah laughed. She put the box down. Do you remember what you were afraid of back then? What was I afraid of? Of liking me. Daniel thought about it. Yes. Why? Because I was afraid of losing you. Hannah looked at him. I was afraid too. Afraid of what? Making the wrong choice. And now? Now I know there is no choice that guarantees you won't get hurt. Daniel nodded. That's true, but some choices are worth taking the risk for. She hugged him. Daniel kissed her forehead. After that, they continued moving boxes. But several weeks later, something happened that reminded Daniel of the helplessness he had once felt with Caroline. Hannah received a job offer in another city. It was a huge opportunity. If she accepted it, she would become strategy director for a rapidly growing company. The salary was higher, the authority was greater, but she would have to move away. Hannah did not know what to do. She was afraid to tell Daniel. Eventually, she handed him the offer letter. Daniel read it. Do you want to go? Hannah was silent. I don't know. If I weren't here, would you go? Probably. Daniel nodded. The answer hurt Hannah. You're not happy? I'm happy for you. But? I'm afraid. Me too. Daniel sat down. I don't want you to give up a great opportunity just because of me. Hannah looked at him. I don't want you to give up your life because of me either. They remained silent. This was the first time their love had faced a truly difficult choice. There was no villain. No one was wrong. There were simply two people who loved each other and two different directions their lives could take. Daniel once believed that love meant always being together. Now he understood that sometimes love meant allowing the person you loved to choose their own path. You should take it, he said. Hannah looked at him. Are you sure? No. She laughed sadly. You're too honest, but I know I wouldn't forgive myself if I made you give up a great opportunity just because I was afraid. Hannah began to cry. You have no idea how much I love you. Daniel pulled her into his arms. I understand enough. Hannah accepted the job. They decided to try a long-distance relationship. The first months were difficult. Calls at different times. Days when they missed each other. Weekend flights. Sometimes they were so exhausted that they could only talk for a few minutes. Sometimes Hannah questioned her decision. Sometimes Daniel felt that the apartment was too empty, but they did not give up. They learned how to love each other when they could not be together every day. Then, nearly a year later, Hannah's company opened a new office in Daniel's city. She was offered the position of head of the new branch. This time, she did not have to choose between love and her career. She could have both. On the day Hannah returned, Daniel waited for her at the airport. When he saw her, he did not run. He simply stood there. Hannah pulled her suitcase toward him and wrapped her arms around him. I'm home. Daniel held her tightly. I know. Did you miss me? No. Hannah laughed. Liar. A lot. They laughed together. After everything, they realized that love was not always about finding someone who made every choice easy. Sometimes, it was about finding someone who loved you enough not to turn love into a cage. Daniel had once planned a perfect proposal. He had made a list, chosen a restaurant, thought about the date, imagined himself getting down on one knee with a ring in his hand. But the more he planned, the more everything began to feel like a project instead of a moment of love. Eventually, he abandoned the entire plan. He simply bought a ring. One evening, Hannah and Daniel were walking home after dinner. The air was cool. The city was quiet. Hannah was telling him a story about work when Daniel stopped. What's wrong? She asked. He took the small box from his pocket. Hannah went silent. Daniel opened it. I've been thinking a lot about the future. Hannah began to cry. What are you going to say? Daniel smiled. I don't have a speech. Really? No. Good. Daniel got down on one knee. Hannah, I used to think life had to be planned in order to be happy. Then you walked into my life by falling into my arms. Hannah laughed through her tears. That sounds exactly like you. You made me understand that not every unexpected thing is frightening. Some of the most beautiful surprises are the things that change your entire life. He looked at her. I can't promise that we'll never argue. I can't promise that life will always be easy. I can't promise that I'll never hurt you. Hannah cried harder. But I can promise that I will always come back. I will always listen. I will always try. And if you fall, I will reach out my hand. Not because I can protect you from everything, but because I want you to know that you will never have to stand back up alone. Hannah covered her mouth. Daniel said, Will you become my family? Hannah nodded before he could finish. Yes. Daniel placed the ring on her finger. She pulled him up and hugged him tightly. I love you. I love you too. They kissed on the sidewalk. There was no expensive restaurant, no band, no fireworks. But to them, it was the most perfect moment of all. Several months later, they had a small wedding. Russell cried. Simon gave a speech that made everyone laugh. Aunt Rita still asked about children. Denise stood beside Hannah before she walked down the aisle. She held her daughter's hand. I'm so proud of you. Hannah smiled. I know. Denise looked at Daniel. And I trust him too. Daniel heard her and smiled. When Hannah walked toward him, Daniel looked at her and remembered the hallway years earlier. A rug, a fall, an embrace. He had never imagined that such a small moment could lead to an entirely different life. In his vows, Daniel said, I used to think love was finding someone who would never make you hurt. Now I understand that love is finding someone who, even when life hurts us, we still want beside us. Hannah said, I used to think I had to become a perfect version of myself to be loved. You taught me that I don't have to be perfect. I only have to be myself. When they exchanged rings, they both cried. Not because they were afraid, but because they knew how far they had come. From two strangers in an office, they became friends. From friends, they became people pretending to be lovers. From pretending, they became real. From fear, they became trust. And from two separate lives, they became a family. Years later, Daniel still sometimes told the story of the day he first met Hannah. He would say that she was running through the hallway carrying a stack of documents, tripped over a rug, and fell straight into his arms. Every time he told the story, Hannah objected. I didn't fall into you. You caught me. Daniel always replied, What's the difference? She would say, It matters. How? If I hadn't fallen, you wouldn't have caught me. Daniel would laugh. Then I guess I should thank the rug. Hannah would laugh too. But what they never joked about was that the fall truly changed their lives. Daniel had once believed he needed to control everything. Hannah had once believed she needed to please everyone. Both of them thought they could avoid being hurt if they were careful enough. But life taught them the opposite. Nobody can completely control the future. Nobody can guarantee that love will never hurt. Nobody can know how long another person will stay in their life. The only thing we can choose is how we live in the present. Daniel had once lost a relationship and thought that was the end of his ability to love. Hannah had spent years living under the pressure of proving to her mother that she was good enough. They met when neither of them was completely healed, but they did not try to turn each other into perfect people. They simply gave each other a safe place to be themselves. One morning, years later, Hannah was carrying a box through the house. She walked across the living room and once again caught her foot on the edge of the rug. Daniel was sitting in a chair, reading. He immediately stood and caught her. Hannah looked at him and laughed. Again. Daniel held her in his arms. I told you. Told me what? I'll always catch you. Hannah looked at him. No, I don't need you to always catch me. Daniel was surprised. Then what do you need? Hannah smiled. I need to know that if I fall one day, you'll be there. But I also want you to know that if you fall one day, I'll be there. Daniel was silent. Her words reminded him of the man he used to be. A man who always thought he had to be strong. A man who did not want to rely on anyone. A man who was afraid to give away his heart because he was afraid of losing it. He looked at the woman standing in front of him and understood that the greatest thing Hannah had given him was not simply love. She had given him the ability to trust. To believe that he could let another person into his life without losing himself. To understand that depending on someone could sometimes be strength rather than weakness. To understand that a good relationship was not a place where two people never hurt each other, but a place where both people were mature enough to repair things after they had caused pain. To understand that happiness was not a life without problems. Happiness was having someone beside you when those problems arrived. Hannah rested her head on his shoulder. What are you thinking about? The first day? The day I fell? Yeah. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been there? Daniel smiled. I don't know. Maybe we would never have met. Maybe. Maybe I would have just walked down the hallway. Maybe. Maybe you would never have known. Daniel looked at her. I don't like thinking about that. Hannah smiled. Me neither. They sat together. Outside the window, the city was beginning another day. Daniel no longer needed to know what tomorrow would bring. He had learned how to live with uncertainty, because he understood that if we spend all our time trying to control everything, we may miss the most beautiful things. Some people enter our lives at exactly the right moment. Some meetings seem accidental but end up changing everything. Some moments last only a few seconds but stay with us for years. And some falls do not take us somewhere lower. They take us exactly where we were meant to belong. Daniel once thought his job was to make sure Hannah never fell, but eventually, he understood that he could not do that. Nobody can protect the person they love from every pain, every failure, or every loss. What he could do was stay beside her when she was afraid, when she failed, when she doubted herself, when she wanted to give up. And Hannah would do the same for him. That was real love. Not a promise that says, you will never fall, but a promise that says, if you fall, I won't walk away. Years later, they still told the story to new friends. Someone would ask, how did you two meet? Hannah would usually say, I fell. Daniel would correct her. She fell into me. Hannah would glare at him. You're already telling it wrong. Everyone would laugh. But then Daniel would look at Hannah, and one glance would be enough for both of them to remember that first day. A hallway, a stack of documents, a rug, a fall, an embrace, and a new life beginning from that moment. If Daniel had not reached out that day, perhaps they would never have had this story. But what mattered even more was that after reaching out, he chose not to let go. And Hannah did the same. Their life was not perfect. They still had difficult days. They still argued. There were still things that did not happen according to plan. But now Daniel no longer feared unexpected things, because he understood one simple truth. Sometimes what we call an accident is simply life opening a door we never knew we were supposed to walk through. A fall can hurt. A failure can leave us lost. A breakup can make us believe love is gone forever. But sometimes, the very things that seem to destroy our lives are actually clearing the path toward a better one. Daniel had once lost a love and believed he would never love again. Hannah had once believed she had to live according to other people's standards to be accepted. Then they met, imperfectly, unexpectedly, at a moment that had never been part of any plan. It was simply a woman running down a hallway and a man who happened to be standing in the right place. And perhaps that is the most beautiful thing about life. We can plan for tomorrow, but we cannot know who tomorrow will bring. We can try to avoid every fall, but we cannot know where one particular fall might lead us. We can build walls to protect our hearts, but sometimes those same walls prevent us from meeting the person we need most. Daniel once thought safety meant never allowing anyone to hurt him. In the end, he understood that true safety was knowing he might get hurt and still having the courage to love. Hannah once thought strength meant not needing anyone. In the end, she learned that strength could also mean reaching out and saying, "Stay with me." And they stayed. Not because they had no other choices, but because every day they continued choosing each other. That was what made their story special. Not the fall, not the first kiss, not the proposal, not the wedding, but the thousands of small choices that came afterward. The choice to listen, the choice to forgive, the choice to tell the truth, the choice to apologize, the choice to stay, the choice to love each other even when life did not look the way they had imagined. And if someone ever asked Daniel what changed his life, he would not say it was his career, money, success, or some great opportunity. He would simply smile and tell them about a woman who once ran too quickly through a hallway, tripped over a rug, and fell straight into his arms. A woman he once thought was just a coworker. A person he thought would only appear in his life for a few minutes. But she stayed. And from that moment on, Daniel realized that sometimes we do not need to know where we are going. We only need enough courage to reach out when someone else falls. Because perhaps the person we are helping back to their feet is not only someone who needs a hand, Perhaps they are the person who will one day hold our hand when we no longer have the strength to stand. And perhaps, just perhaps, that is how love finds us. Without warning, without a plan, imperfectly. Through one very small fall into exactly the right person at exactly the right moment in exactly the right place where two hearts had been waiting for each other all along. Have you ever experienced something awkward that turned into something real? Tell your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter, exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next.